10 women stood on that platform waiting to be chosen like cattle at an auction. One by one they were claimed. 9 women, 8, 7. Until only one remained, Anna Miller. The one they called returned merchandise. The woman whose own husband sent her back after 3 years because she couldn't give him children. The crowd laughed. They whispered. They watched her stand there alone in the burning sun. Then the laughter stopped. A man stepped forward. Jacob Cole, the rancher whose wife and baby died in his arms. A man who hadn't smiled in 3 years. He looked at Anna's hands, saw the blood where her nails had cut into her palms from refusing to break, and he said 4 words. This one. We're leaving. But he didn't want a wife. He wanted a partner, someone strong enough to survive without being loved. What neither of them expected was a tornado that would tear down everything and force them to choose each other for real. What you'll discover. Sometimes the person everyone overlooks is the one who ends up saving everyone else. The meaning, being the one nobody wanted, just means you were being saved for the one who could truly see you. If you've ever felt like you weren't enough, this story is for you. Hit subscribe and stay with me. Drop a comment. Have you ever been underestimated and proved them all wrong? Share this with someone who needs to remember their worth isn't decided by the people who rejected them. The sun beat down on that platform, something fierce. Anna Miller tried to work up the moisture to swallow. A tin dipper of water had been passed around to the 10 women, but she refused it. She knew better than to ever show you were thirsty when the wolves are watching. Mr. Harwick shouted like a man selling snake oil. "Fine women, all skilled in the home," he declared. "Here is Miss Catherine from Pennsylvania. She can read and write." A rancher with graying temples stepped up and claimed her. The young woman's relief was plain as day. 1 gone, 9 to go. Anna stared at the horizon, where the tracks melted into the heat. She felt the crowd's eyes slide right past her. The woman next to her, a widow named Mrs. Garrett, whispered, "Heard you were the one they sent back, the one who can't have children." Anna didn't even blink. After her husband Thomas returned her like faulty equipment after 3 years, she had heard much worse from her own family. Her father had not even bothered to look up from his paper. Her mother just pushed some money into her hand and quietly shut the door on her. "Miss Dorothy, an expert seamstress," Mr. Harwick announced. Another man stepped forward. 8 women remained. The empty space on the platform felt like an accusation. Anna saw the chosen women look back with a mix of pity and relief. The crowd pushed in closer, smelling of sweat, tobacco, and sour perfume. "Something must be wrong with that one," a voice said, loud enough to hear. "She's returned merchandise," another man laughed. Her fingernails dug into her palms, but her face stayed calm. She had practiced in a mirror how to look right through people, how to stand tall when shame was eating you alive. Mrs. Garrett, the widow with 2 sons, was chosen by a sturdy German farmer. 7 left. The empty spaces grew. The younger women were picked quickly. Then there were 4, then 3, then 2. Finally, there was only Anna. A quiet snicker started in the crowd, growing into an ugly laugh. Mr. Harwick's face was beet red. He looked at his papers, desperate to find one good thing to say. "Miss Miller here," he stammered, "is experienced in running a household." The laughter roared. "Experienced at getting sent back," someone yelled. Her knees felt weak, but she kept standing, staring at that horizon. That is when she heard it, the steady sound of boots on the wooden planks. The laughter choked and died. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, and through the sudden quiet came Jacob Cole. Everyone knew who he was, a rancher whose wife and baby had died from a fever 3 years earlier. He never went to town parties and never smiled. He was tall and weathered by the sun and by a sadness that lived deep in his eyes. He stopped at the platform, but he did not look at her face to judge her. Instead, he looked at her hands. She saw that her fists had been clenched so tight her nails had drawn blood. "Mr. Cole," Harwick said, wiping his sweaty face, "I was not aware you were in the market for a—" I was not, Jacob said, his voice like rough cloth. I changed my mind. He then looked right into her eyes. It was not a look of pity or of a man buying livestock. It was a look that saw something no one else had bothered to find. "This one," he said loud and clear. "We are leaving." The silence was absolute. The world seemed to tilt under Anna's feet. Her mouth was open, but she could not speak. Harwick tried again. "Mr. Cole, I must inform you of Miss Miller's previous—" "Don't need to know," Jacob said, already turning to leave. "Is she coming or not?" It took Anna a moment to find her voice. "I am coming." He gave a single nod and walked back into the crowd. She grabbed her bag, which felt as light as her hopes and as heavy as her failures, and followed him. The townsfolk shrank away from her, their faces full of confusion. The show had not ended the way they wanted. "That's Jacob Cole taking another man's problem," someone whispered. "She will just break his heart, too," said another. But Anna kept her eyes on Jacob's steady shoulders and did not look back. The shame of the platform was behind her. Ahead was something new. When they got to his plain work wagon, he stopped. He did not take her bag or help her up. He just waited. She knew he was giving her one last choice. She could go back to the whispers and the loneliness, or she could get in that wagon. She threw her bag in the back and climbed up onto the seat herself. She stumbled a bit, but made it without any help. When she was settled, she saw a flicker of something like respect in his eyes. He got in beside her and snapped the reins. They rolled out of town, leaving the crowd behind. The silence in the wagon was not like the silence on the platform. This was a quiet she could breathe in. As the last buildings of Millerton disappeared, she finally asked, "Why?" He did not answer for a long time. The only sound was the mule's hooves on the dusty road. When he finally spoke, he was still looking ahead. "You did not beg." That was all he said. But it was everything. Every rut in that road seemed to call out to the wagon wheels. Anna held on so tight her knuckles turned white, trying not to slide over into Jacob Cole. He just sat there, moving with the wagon like he was part of it. The town noise disappeared behind them, leaving only the sound of creaking leather and mule hooves. Still, she could feel folks staring. "Mr. Cole," her voice came out rough with dust. She tried again. "You should know some things about why I was the last one left." He shook his head. "Don't need to. But you can cook, can't you?" The question surprised her. "Yes." "And wash clothes?" "Yes." "Know which end of a chicken the eggs come from?" A small smile touched her lips. "The back end, usually." He grunted, maybe amused. "Then we are fine." They passed the last house, a widow's place with a broken fence and wild roses. Anna had always wondered if she would end up just like that, alone and forgotten. "Your bags are light," Jacob noted. "I do not own very much." "Good," he said. "I do not have very much." His plain honesty settled something inside her. There were no false promises here. "The ranch," she began, but stopped. "The place is about 8 or 9 miles out, 160 acres, mostly scrub brush. The house has 4 rooms and a lean-to." He wiped dust from his face with a handkerchief. "You will want the lean-to." "The lean-to?" "I built it last month. It has its own door, with a lock on the inside." Anna studied his face, weathered like old leather as he watched the road. A muscle worked in his jaw. "You built me a room?" "I built someone a room," he corrected. "I figured whoever answered my advertisement would want their own space." So he had ordered a bride like something from a catalog. Except he had not even been there to pick one out. "You were not at the depot to meet us. I was not planning on it. What made you change your mind?" He stayed quiet for a long time. A hawk circled in the big sky above them. The mules just kept walking, steady and sure. "I saw that crowd gathering like vultures," he finally said. His hands tightened on the reins. "I went to see what the trouble was, and I found you. The one left behind, the one nobody wanted. I work hard, she said, just to say something true. I do not complain. Good, he said. Neither do I. A deep rut bounced her hard against his shoulder. He was solid as an old oak tree. She pulled away fast, but not before she caught his scent, clean like soap and leather. There is a stream up ahead, he said. We will stop there to water the mules. She saw a line of green trees cutting through the brown land, a promise of water. But as they got closer, she saw something else, too. A man on a horse waiting in the shade. Jacob's whole body went rigid. His hand rested on the rifle beside him. That is Harwick, he said, and the way he said the name made Anna's stomach clench. He must have taken the shortcut. The bride agent just sat on his horse, holding a roll of papers like a club. Jacob stopped the wagon about 20 feet away. Harwick's horse was thirsty and restless, but the agent held it back, tapping those papers on his leg. "Mr. Cole," Harwick said, tipping his hat. "Miss Miller." "Harwick." Jacob's voice was flat. "You got paid. Our business is finished." "That is where you are wrong," Harwick said, his saddle creaking. "I have legal duties. When a wife is returned, papers have to be signed. Waivers. They are for your protection, Mr. Cole." Anna felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Here it comes, she thought. The public shame all over again. I do not need protecting. Jacob urged the mules forward. Harwick moved his horse to block their path. "You ought to know what you're getting into. This woman is sitting right here." The words flew out of Anna before she could stop them. Both men stared at her. She sat up straight and met the agent's cold eyes. "Whatever you have to say, Mr. Harwick, say it." His jaw worked for a moment. "Miss Miller," she corrected him. "The divorce was final. Then I am just trying to look out for Mr. Cole. He needs to know about your condition." That last word hung in the air like a bad smell. Anna felt Jacob go perfectly still beside her, like a man waiting for a storm to break. 3 years married, Harwick said, enjoying himself now. "And no children." Her husband said everything was normal on his part. A doctor in Fort Worth confirmed it. "It makes a man wonder," Harwick said. "It makes a man wonder why you are still talking." Jacob's quiet voice was more threatening than a shout. "Move your horse. I am helping you, Cole. I know you are keeping my animals from water, and I know you are talking about things that are not your business. If you do not move that horse in the next 10 seconds, I will move it for you." Harwick's face turned pale. "I am telling you, that woman cannot have children. It is documented. You take her. You are taking on a lifetime of emptiness." Jacob was off that wagon in a flash. He did not rush, just walked toward Harwick like a force of nature. Harwick's horse backed away nervously. "Empty?" Jacob repeated the words slowly. "You want to talk about empty?" He stood beside Harwick's horse and took the bridle in his hand. "My house is already empty. It has been empty for 3 long years. I have a grave on my land with 2 headstones. You think this woman is going to make my life worse?" Harwick swallowed, and Anna could see it from the wagon. "I just thought—" "You did not think," Jacob said, letting go of the horse. "You wanted a scene back in town, and now you want one here. Get going." Harwick looked like he might argue, but then he turned his horse and kicked it hard, riding away in a cloud of dust. Jacob watched him go, then climbed back onto the wagon seat. "I am sorry about that," he said, taking the reins. "You did not have to do that." "Yes," he said, "I did." He guided the mules to the stream, and they drank the cool, clear water. Jacob got down and checked each of their hooves for stones, his movements patient and sure. "You should know," she said to his back. "What he said is true, about me not being able to have children." He stood up, water dripping from his hands. "And you should know that my wife died trying to give me a child. The baby died with her. It took them a whole day to pass while I just sat there, completely useless." He wiped his hands on his trousers. "So, if you are thinking I am looking for a woman to give me sons, you can put that right out of your mind." His words were not cruel, just tired and worn smooth by grief. "Then why?" Anna asked softly. "Why take a wife at all?" He turned and truly looked at her for the first time. His eyes were the color of the prairie in winter. A ranch this size is too much for one person. I need another set of hands. Someone to do the work without expecting fancy promises. Is that all? That is all. She nodded. It was honest, far more honest than her first husband had ever been. I can do that, she said. I can work for my place, that is all I am asking. Have you ever been so stuck you'd take any road out no matter how rough it looked? Well, that was Anna's story. She was trading a bad past for an unknown future, and it all started with a man who laid out the terms as plain as day. Jacob finished with the mules and took a long drink from his canteen, the water warm and tasting of metal. He offered it to her, and she drank. I don't talk much, he said, his voice direct. Don't care for town socials. I work from before sunup to after sundown, and I expect the same from you. That suits me just fine, Anna replied. The house is rough, he continued. It's built to last, not to look at. And one more thing. That lean-to room, that's your space. I won't come in uninvited. I expect you'll do the same for my room. We share the kitchen and the work. That is all we're sharing. Understood? This story's about how real partnership is built on respect, not rules. If you believe in this power of a second chance, you need to hear what happened next. A wave of relief washed over Anna so strong she had to grab the wagon seat to steady herself. Her first husband, Thomas, had never understood the meaning of a closed door. Understood, she managed to say. Jacob clicked the reins, and the wagon moved on. For the first time in years, Anna felt a quiet space opening up inside her, a place where something like hope could grow if you gave it enough room. But as they crested a small hill, she saw him, a lone rider coming toward them fast, kicking up a cloud of dust that looked like smoke. Jacob's hands tightened on the reins. That's Sam, he said, and his tone made Anna's stomach clench. My neighbor's boy. He wouldn't ride like that unless something is terribly wrong. The boy, Sam, couldn't have been more than 14. He pulled his horse up hard, his face flushed and his words tumbling out. Mr. Cole, the fire jumped the creek. Pa says if it reaches your grass. How far? Jacob was already turning the wagon, his movements calm and efficient. Maybe 2 miles from your south pasture. The wind is pushing it north. Jacob's jaw was tight. My stock is in the home pasture. They should be safe. Tell your pa I appreciate the warning. Yes, sir, the boy said, then hesitated. Sir, we could use every hand if you're willing. After I see to my place, I'll come, Jacob promised. He waited until Sam was galloping away before he looked at Anna. Change of plans. The smoke on the horizon had grown into a dark, spreading stain against the sky. The fire is not threatening the house, Jacob said, urging the mules on. But I need to check the fire breaks I plowed. Over the next rise, Anna saw it. A low, solid house of rough lumber that looked as if it had grown right out of the land. There was a barn and a corral, but no garden, no flowers, nothing soft. Jacob pulled up and jumped down. Come on, I'll show you what's what. The house smelled of dust and bacon grease. It was 4 simple rooms, a kitchen, 2 small bedrooms, and a parlor that looked like it had never been used. The stove works good, but the damper sticks, he said, moving quickly. Pump at the sink has good water from a spring. Root cellar is through that door. He pushed open another door off the kitchen. This is your room. It was narrow, but it was private, with its own door leading outside. A simple iron bed, a washstand, and a small window were all it held. There is a lock here, he said, pointing to the bolt on the inside of the door. Nobody bothers you in here. Anna set her bag on the bed. The room was empty, but that bolt on the door meant it was hers. Chickens are by the barn, Jacob was already saying from the kitchen. They probably need feed. There are preserved goods in the cellar. Make yourself at home. You're leaving now? She asked. The fire, he said, stopping at the door. It will not wait. I have to help Patterson. I might not be back until morning. He saw the look on her face. You will be fine, he said, stating it as a fact. The house is solid. You have food and water. Lock the doors if it makes you feel better." And then he was gone. Anna stood alone in the quiet kitchen, the sound of the departing wagon fading away. Through the window, the smoke seemed darker, and maybe a little closer. She ran a finger across a dusty shelf, leaving a clean line in the grime. This place needed work. It needed someone to make it more than just a shelter. So she started. She unpacked her few belongings in her new room. She tied on her apron and went back to the kitchen, claiming the space in the only way she knew how. She pumped water until it ran clear and began scrubbing the table. In the root cellar, she found potatoes and a jar of preserved peaches that looked like sunset in a glass. The smokehouse held salt pork, and in the chicken coop she found 4 warm eggs. She learned the trick to the stove's sticky damper and soon had a fire going. She put beans on to soak for the next day. Then she started supper. Would he think she was being presumptuous if she cooked? Or lazy if she did not? She decided a man fighting a fire would need to eat. She made cornbread and fried the salt pork with wild onions she found growing near the back door. As the sun set, painting the sky the same color as the smoke, she heard the sound of horses. Not one, but several. She looked out the window and saw dark shapes moving in the twilight. Then heavy footsteps crossed the porch and the door opened. Jacob stood there, covered from head to toe in soot and ash. Behind him were 3 other men, all just as blackened by smoke. They all stared at her, their expressions a mixture of surprise and something else, something that made her take a step back. "Broad help," Jacob said, his voice raspy. The fire jumped the brake. "Well now, Jake," he said with a grin that showed too many teeth. "You didn't tell us you had company." The man with the red beard stepped into the kitchen, his boots tracking ash across the clean floor. 2 other men stood behind him, big and smoky, blocking the doorway. "This is my wife, Anna." Jacob's voice was hard and flat. That one word, wife, created a barrier between her and them. Redbeard's grin disappeared, then came back, but more cautious this time. "Your wife?" "Since when did you get a wife, Jake?" "Since today." Jacob walked over to the wash basin and began scrubbing his hands. "The fire is contained for now." Redbeard was still staring at Anna. "If the wind stays down, it should hold. You boys should get on back to your own places." Jacob dried his hands on a towel. "It is a long ride home in the dark." "Now hold on," said the second man, a skinny fellow. "We fought that fire all day with you. The least you can do is offer us some supper. It is a terrible thing to be bought and sold, to have your future decided by a man you have never met. But for Anna, it was the only choice she had. This story is about finding strength when you feel powerless and discovering kindness in the hardest of places. It reminds us that a person's worth is not what they cost, but what they build." Anna leaned against the table, her knuckles white. On the stove, cornbread and salt pork sat waiting for one man, not the 3 who followed her new husband Jacob into the small house. Jacob stood between her and them, a solid wall. The man called Redbeard smirked. He could not believe Jacob went through with the fool plan. Jacob just opened the door wider, a clear invitation for them to leave. He told them to tell Patterson he would help rebuild his fence tomorrow. After a moment, the men left, their heavy boots thumping on the porch. Jacob shut the door and slid the bolt home. He stood with his back to her, his shoulders pulled tight. Anna broke the quiet. "I made supper," she said. She saw him turn slowly, his eyes taking in the clean kitchen and the food she had prepared. He told her she did not have to do that. She simply replied that she had to eat too. It was easier to busy herself filling a plate than to stand still while he watched her. Jacob told her to sit down, saying she looked like she was about to fall over. She set a full plate in front of him. It was only cornbread, pork, and potatoes, but his eyes went wide. He took a bite and chewed it for a long time. "It has been 6 months since anyone but me cooked in this kitchen," he said. They ate in the quiet glow of the lantern. She asked about the fire, and he explained that a neighbor lost some grazing land but no buildings. He promised her those men would not be back. He said it with a finality that she could believe. He explained that by morning, the whole county would know she was here under his protection. She almost asked what would have happened if he had not claimed her as his wife, but she already knew the answer. She asked about the man with the red beard. Jacob's jaw grew tight. He told her the man's name was Tom Hadley, a fellow who thinks the world owes him something. He warned her to stay clear of him. After they finished the meal, Anna washed the plates while Jacob sat at the table looking bone-tired. She told him he should get some sleep. He stood up, his joints popping, and agreed that it had been a long day. Before going to his room, he stopped and told her to lock both the front and back doors. Not because he thought those men would return, but just to be safe. She checked each lock twice. Then she lay down on her simple mattress, still in her clothes, listening to the house settle in the cool night air. Through the wall, she heard Jacob get ready for bed, and soon his breathing became slow and steady. This was her life now, she thought. A small room, a quiet house, and a man who treated her like hired help. There were no promises of affection, just the guarantee of work, food, and a lock on her door. The rooster crowed long before the sun came up. Anna was already moving in the dark, lighting the stove. Jacob came into the kitchen soon after, and they worked around each other in a silent, practiced way. He told her he would be fixing the chicken fence in the home pasture. The chickens, he explained, were now her responsibility. He said the eggs were hers to either use for their meals or sell in town for her own money. He also mentioned the kitchen garden. It was late in the season, but there was still time to plant greens or turnips. Anna wondered if he expected a noon meal. A man doing hard labor could not work all day on just bread, so she made biscuits, fried some eggs, and opened a jar of peaches. She felt a little foolish setting the table, but Jacob came in right at noon. He washed his hands and ate like it was the most normal thing in the world. He told her the fence was now sound. She offered to help him set new posts, and he looked up at her surprised. He asked if she had ever done that kind of work. She admitted she had not, but said she was willing to learn. He just nodded and went back to his food. She knew the garden had not been touched in 3 years since his first wife Sarah had passed away. Their days settled into a rhythm. They rose before dawn and worked until the sun went down. They rarely spoke, but their actions spoke for them. She mended his shirts, and he kept the house supplied with wood and water. One day, Jacob noticed the blisters on her hands from turning the soil in the garden. The next time he went to town, he brought back a pair of leather gloves and left them on the kitchen table for her without a word. She learned he liked his coffee strong and his beans salty. He learned she was a light sleeper, and he fixed the squeaky floorboard outside her room. One afternoon, while hanging laundry, she caught herself humming a forgotten childhood song. She stopped, feeling a little embarrassed, but then she realized no one was around to hear her. She was safe, so she started humming again. The laundry snapped on the line, and the warm sun almost tricked Anna into feeling at ease. That peace broke when she spotted a rider coming up the path. This one moved slow and purposeful, not like young Sam Patterson. It was a woman on a side saddle, her back as straight as a fence post. Anna knew right away it was Mrs. Patterson here to size up the new bride. The song in her throat went silent. She wiped her hands on her apron and braced herself for a fight with no bruises, only deep wounds. Mrs. Patterson's horse stepped high and mighty, and behind her came the daughter, tagging along for the show. Anna dried her damp hands right there on her apron. Let them see she was a working woman, not some fancy doll. "Mrs. Cole," the voice boomed across the yard. "I do hope we are not interrupting." Being called Mrs. Cole still felt strange after 3 weeks, like a borrowed coat. Anna just said, "Mrs. Patterson," and stood her ground by the clothesline. The daughter, maybe 16, gave a quick nod. Mrs. Patterson got off her horse and marched over, every inch a general. "We just had to come to give you a proper welcome," she said. Her eyes took in the laundry, the bucket, and Anna's damp apron, her smile sharper than a tack. "I am sorry we did not come sooner, but we heard such confusing stories." She slowly pulled off her gloves. "My husband just could not believe Jacob would remarry after his dear Sarah passed away." The words "Dear Sarah" sounded phony coming from her. Anna knew for a fact Sarah Cole died before the Pattersons ever came to this county. "And yet, here you are," Mrs. Patterson said. "How very surprising." "Would you like some coffee?" Anna offered, ignoring the jab. "That would be lovely, if you have any." Anna led them inside, feeling their eyes on every clean corner. They noted the swept porch, scrubbed floors, and organized shelves. Mrs. Patterson's thin smile showed her disappointment. She had clearly hoped to find a mess. "You have done so much with so little," she said sweetly. Anna started the coffee and brought out the good china cups with little roses. "These were Sarah's," Mrs. Patterson declared at once. "She had such fine taste. She could even play the piano and speak French." The daughter, Margaret, whispered, "Mama, perhaps she does not want to hear this." "Hush," Mrs. Patterson said, settling in. "I'm sure Mrs. Cole wants to know all about the woman who came before her. Is that not right, dear?" Anna's hand was steady as she poured the coffee, but she felt a tremor inside. When Mrs. Patterson asked for sugar, Anna chipped some off the cone Jacob had bought. "How lovely," the woman said, taking 3 pieces. "So, where are you from?" "Back east," Anna said. "And your family?" "Gone." The woman's prying continued. "How did you and Jacob even meet? Nobody knew he was looking for a new wife." Margaret looked like she wanted to run right out the door. Anna took a slow sip of her coffee, letting the quiet hang in the air. "We met when it was time for us to meet," she finally answered. "How practical," Mrs. Patterson replied, her gaze sweeping over Anna's mended dress and rough hands. "I suppose you are grateful for a home, and Jacob is grateful for a cook." Margaret choked back a small laugh. Mrs. Patterson then asked about the garden. "The soil here is terrible. What is your secret?" "Work," Anna said plainly. "You turn the soil, add manure, water it, and pull the weeds." Mrs. Patterson's cup clicked as she set it down. "How very active of you. You know, I could sponsor you for the Ladies' Aid Society in town." Anna saw the trap plain as day. They would only gossip about her behind her back. "That is kind, but I have too much to do here," she replied. "Of course. A neglected ranch needs a lot of work," Mrs. Patterson said, standing up. "Now, before we leave, I must see the rest of the house. Sarah had so many plans for it." Anna ignored the woman completely and turned to her daughter. "Margaret, would you like some fresh eggs to take home?" The girl's face brightened. "Oh, yes, please." Anna grabbed a basket and led Margaret outside, leaving Mrs. Patterson standing alone in the kitchen. She could look all she wanted. There was nothing to find but hard work and a clean home. Outside by the chicken coop, Margaret finally spoke freely. "I'm so sorry about Mama. She just gets stuck on how things ought to be." While Anna gathered the eggs, Margaret explained that her mother hates unfinished business, and her friendship with the first Mrs. Cole was one of them. "She was very delicate, Sarah was," Margaret said softly. "Mama says Mr. Cole nearly lost his mind when she died. He dug both graves all by himself." Both graves. The words hung in the air. "But he seems better now," Margaret added in a hurry. "Sam Patterson says he even whistles sometimes." Anna noticed the girl's blush at the mention of the boy's name and handed her the full basket. "Can I ask you something, Mrs. Cole?" Margaret asked. "Are you happy?" The question surprised Anna. She had a roof over her head and food on the table. Was that happiness? "I am where I need to be," she answered. Margaret seemed to understand. They found Mrs. Patterson on the porch, looking sour. "We have to go," she snapped, getting on her horse. "Tell Jacob we stopped by." As they rode away, Margaret gave a small wave. Anna watched them go, then went inside to clean up. She stopped short. On the table lay a small leather book tied with a ribbon. It was a journal, left behind on purpose. Anna knew whose it was even before she opened it. The inside cover read, "Sarah Elizabeth Cole." Mrs. Patterson had not forgotten it. She had left it there like a weapon. Anna held the life of a woman who seemed to have everything: beauty, talent, and Jacob's heart. The right thing to do was to give it to Jacob. But her hands were already untying the ribbon. The first page described a loving smile from Jacob that made her life feel new. Anna's hands shook as she read on. The next entry told of yellow roses he bought her, a symbol of her laughter. Sarah wrote of feeling treasured and loved. A tiny dried flower petal fluttered out from between the pages. One afternoon, while cleaning, Anna found an old journal tucked away. The cover was brittle, and inside the ink was faded. It was dated February 3rd, 1879. The entry spoke of a woman's hopes to make the house beautiful with her new husband, Jacob. Just then, the front door opened. Anna quickly hid the journal as Jacob walked in, covered in dust. He announced they had visitors, Mrs. Patterson and her daughter. Anna knew they had come to inspect her, to judge her. After they left, she told Jacob that Mrs. Patterson had left something behind. She placed the journal on the table between them. Jacob stared at it. It was his first wife's diary. He said he thought he had burned all of her things. His thumb gently traced the name Sarah on the cover. He asked Anna if she had read it. She told him she only saw the first page. He opened it, and his expression softened, then became hard as stone. He closed the book and looked at her. "I need to tell you about her," he said, his voice low. "You do not owe me any explanations," Anna replied softly. He insisted, saying she deserved to know the truth. He described Sarah as beautiful but fragile, like the fine teacups she had ordered. He said that at first Sarah had hated living out on the prairie. It was lonely, and the work was hard. But she tried her best to make the house a home, painting flowers on the walls and singing while she worked. He told Anna that Sarah was overjoyed when she became pregnant. She spent her days sewing baby clothes and planning the nursery that would go in the small room Anna now occupied. The baby, a boy, came 2 months early. It was the middle of spring and the roads were thick with mud. The nearest doctor was 20 miles away. Jacob stood and walked to the window, his back to her. "It took me 5 hours to ride to the doctor and bring him back," he said. For 5 hours, Sarah was alone with only a neighbor to help her. By the time I returned, it was too late. The doctor did what he could, but the baby boy never took a breath. And Sarah, she was too weak. She slipped away a few hours later. He had lost them both in a single day. She never even cried. Sarah hung on for one more day, though, just long enough to understand it all and long enough to blame herself for it. She kept saying she was sorry that she had failed him. He turned away from the window. I told her it was not her fault. I said we would try again once she got her strength back. I looked right in her dying eyes and told a lie. That was not a lie, that was mercy. He wondered if it was. He picked up her journal again. "You know the last thing she said to me? Find someone stronger. Not 'I love you' or anything like that. Just find someone stronger." Those words just hung there in the air between them. Anna finally got it. She understood the small shelter he had built, why he came looking for a wife, and why he chose her. She was the woman who had already been turned away, the one who could not have children. He picked someone who could not fail him the way Sarah did. Someone who could not die trying to give him a son. "I did not want stronger," he said softly. "I did not want anyone. I just wanted my work, some quiet, and for no one else to die on my account. But you put an ad in the paper for a bride. A ranch this size needs 2 sets of hands. I tried to do it all by myself, but I could not. And men around here, they gossip. A single man with land like this becomes a target for every widow with a pot roast and every father with a daughter. It was just easier to get a wife. Safer. That one word explained it all. So you chose the one that nobody else wanted." "I chose the one who stood up tall while everyone else was laughing at her. That was different." Anna felt a little shift inside her chest. It was not quite hope, but something close to it. "Can I ask you about Sarah?" He just nodded. "Did you love her?" The silence stretched on for so long that she figured he would not answer at all. Then he spoke. "I loved the woman she was trying so hard to be. This tough frontier woman, this wife of a rancher. But that was not her. She was a banker's daughter from Dallas, who had read one too many stories about the Wild West. He put the journal down on the table. Do you want to read the rest of it? No. Are you sure? It might answer some things for you. I do not have questions about Sarah. I have questions about you. He raised his eyebrows. That first day, Anna said, when Mr. Harwick was telling you my story, you already had a feeling, did you not? Before he even said a word. How could you know? The way the other women kept their distance from you, the way you stood apart from the group. You looked like you were just waiting for another bad thing to happen. His eyes met hers directly. I recognized it. It was the same way I stood around after Sarah died, just waiting for the next pain to come along. And you still picked me because of it. I figured we would understand that about each other, just two folks who had already been broken, with nothing left to break. Anna stood up and started gathering things to make supper. Just beans and cornbread, simple things that she did not have to think about. You are wrong about that. About what? About having nothing left to break. She lifted the lid from the bean pot and gave it a stir. There is always something left to break. The only question is if you are willing to take that risk. She heard his chair scrape the floor, and his footsteps heading toward his room. The door shut behind him, real soft. When he came back, he held something wrapped in brown paper. I found this up in the attic when I was cleaning things out before you arrived. He placed it on the table. I was going to throw it on the fire with everything else. I do not know why I kept it. Anna wiped her hands on her apron and unwrapped the paper. Inside was a dress. It was yellow calico with little blue flowers. Simple, but it was made well. And it looked to be about her size. Was this Sarah's, she asked. No, I bought it in town right after I sent out the ad for a wife. I figured whoever answered would need some new clothes. Life on a ranch is rough on city dresses. She held the dress up to her shoulders. The fabric was sturdy and the cut was practical. It was made for work, but it was still pretty enough to wear to church. You bought this before you even knew who was coming. Yes. But you never gave it to me. It just did not feel right. Giving you something that was meant for somebody else, even if that somebody was not a real person yet. She folded the dress and wrapped it back up. I will take it now, if you do not mind. It is yours. They just stood there with the table between them. The late afternoon sun was slanting in through the window. She could hear the chickens settling down for the night and the wind starting to pick up. Jacob, yes. Thank you for telling me about Sarah. I figured you had a right to know since you are living in her house and using her things. It is not her house anymore. He glanced around the kitchen, at the clean windows and the neat shelves. No, I suppose it is not. He walked back outside to finish up his chores for the evening. Anna went back to making supper with the yellow dress resting on the chair next to her. She watched him through the window as he headed for the barn. His shoulders looked heavy with more than just a long day's work. She thought about Sarah's journal on the table, with its pressed flowers and its plans for wallpaper. She thought about a woman who died trying to be something she was not. Then she looked down at her own hands. They were rough and strong. They were not pretty, but they were here. The beans were simmering, and the cornbread was rising in the oven. It was simple food for simple people who knew that just staying alive was a victory. She picked up Sarah's journal and walked over to the stove. The fire was burning hot enough to turn paper to ash in just a few seconds. All she had to do was open the little iron door and toss it inside. Then the ghost would be gone for good. But just as her hand touched the handle, she saw something tucked into the very back pages. It was not Sarah's handwriting. It was Jacob's. It was rougher, darker, and pressed so hard into the page it almost tore through. She carefully pulled the page out. It was dated just 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks before he had come to get her. Sarah told me to find someone stronger. I am thinking now that maybe she meant a different kind of strong. Not a stronger body, but someone who was stronger at being alone. Stronger at being happy with less. Stronger at surviving without being loved. The words started to blur. Anna blinked her eyes hard and read the very last line. Maybe I am the one who needs to be stronger. strong enough to try again. Different this time. Real this time. She heard his boots on the porch. She quickly tucked the page back inside the journal, but she could not get rid of the question that was burning inside her now. When he wrote about trying again, did he mean just trying to have a wife? Or was he trying for something more? The sky had turned a pale, sickly yellow as Anna pulled the dry clothes from the line. The air was so heavy it felt like she was breathing water. Every piece of laundry she touched seemed to crackle with a storm that had not yet broken. "A storm is coming," Jacob yelled from the barn. He was moving the cattle into the closer pasture, working fast but staying calm. "It is a big one." She had seen her share of Texas storms, but this one felt different. The birds were all gone. The chickens were already huddled together in their coop. Even the flies had disappeared. Jacob slammed the barn doors shut and checked the latches twice. His voice was firm. "Get inside now. I need to board up the windows." Anna didn't argue. "I can help in there," she said, running for the house just as the wind hit. It was not a gradual thing, but a solid wall of force that nearly shoved her off her feet. The prairie dust kicked up, turning the bright noonday into a spooky twilight. Inside, she pumped water until her arms ached, filling every pot and bucket she could find. Through the window, she saw Jacob fighting to nail boards in place, his shirt snapping in the wind like a flag. A deep thunder rumbled so low she felt it in her bones. Then came the lightning, not in single strikes but in great white sheets that made the world look like a skeleton. Jacob finally burst through the door, his eyes wide. "To the cellar, now! This ain't no regular storm." He pointed out the last open window. The horizon was gone, swallowed by a monstrous churning wall of black and green cloud. And reaching down from it was a dark funnel pointing right at them. "Tornado," he said flatly. "Maybe 10 minutes out." They scrambled, grabbing a bucket of water, a lantern, and the basket of eggs she had just collected. The wind fought them for the cellar door, trying to tear it right out of Jacob's hands. They tumbled down the dark steps just as the first hailstones began to fall. They were not small, but chunks of ice as big as walnuts, pounding the roof like cannon fire. The cellar was cramped and smelled of damp earth and potatoes. In the shaky yellow glow of the lantern, Anna saw that Jacob's shirt was torn. A thin line of blood trickled from a cut on his cheek. "Let me see," she said, reaching for him. Just then the house above them began to scream. Wood groaned and nails shrieked as they were pulled from the walls. Something heavy crashed to the floor overhead. "Get down!" Jacob yelled. He pulled her against the far wall, shielding her with his body as dirt rained down from the ceiling. The roar that came next was not wind. It was something alive and furious. The cellar door shook in its frame, threatening to fly apart. Anna buried her face in Jacob's shoulder, feeling the wild beat of his heart against her cheek. His arms were locked around her, as solid as the foundation of the house. Time seemed to stop. The world above was being torn to shreds. They heard glass shatter and wood splinter. The tin roof peeled off with a sound like a person screaming. Suddenly, a terrible pressure built in Anna's ears, and the cellar door blew inward with a deafening crack. The tornado was right on top of them, trying to suck them out of the ground. Jacob's grip became iron. He said something against her hair, but the sound was lost in the chaos. She knew it was her name, a prayer to hold on to. She wrapped her arms around his waist and held on with all her might. If this was the end, they would face it together. Then the lantern went out, leaving them in total blackness. Just as quickly as it came, the roar moved on, fading into the distance to tear apart someone else's life. The pressure in Anna's ears popped. She could hear again. Jacob's harsh breathing and a sob she realized was her own. "Stay put," he whispered. "No," she said, holding on tighter. "We go together." He pulled back just enough to see her face in the dim light that now filtered from where the door had been. Together they climbed out of the hole and into a world that was broken. The sky was right where the kitchen roof should have been. The stove was somehow untouched, but their table was simply gone. Anna noticed her good china cup still sat on a shelf, full of water, but the shelf itself was hanging in midair. "The barn," she whispered. They turned to look. The barn was not just damaged, it was gone. In its place was a pile of splintered wood and one very confused cow, mooing sadly in the wreckage. Jacob let out a strange, choked laugh. "Well, I'll be. The chickens made it." He pointed to the chicken coop, which had been picked up and set down 20 feet away, completely upside down. But then Anna saw it. The part of the house that had been her room was completely gone. Only the floor remained. Her clothes, the yellow dress Jacob had bought her, everything was just gone. But Jacob's room next to it was mostly standing. "A storm's got its own ideas, I reckon," Jacob said softly, seeing where she was looking. It was only then that she realized her hands were still fisted in his shirt, and his arms were still wrapped around her waist. They were standing in the ruins of their farm, holding each other like they belonged there. The line between a business arrangement and something real had been completely washed away by the storm. With his own hands, the kitchen she had made her own. Everything was broken but them. They had survived by holding on, by choosing to face this together. She spoke first, her voice quiet. "We need to check on the animals." "Yeah," he said, his arm tightening around her. "We have to see what is left before dark. We also need a place to sleep tonight." Just then, Sam Patterson came riding hard through the debris, looking wild with fear. "Mr. Cole, you have got to come," the boy cried out. He was bleeding from a dozen different cuts. "That tornado hit our place square on. Pa is trapped under the house. Ma sent me to get help." Jacob let Anna go and started moving right away. "How bad is he?" "Real bad," Sam said. "His legs are pinned tight. Ma can hear him under there, but she cannot get to him." Jacob began pulling tools from the wreckage. He found a shovel, a pry bar, and a rope. "I am going with you," Anna said. "No," Jacob told her. "It is too dangerous." "You will need every hand you can get," she insisted. "And I know a little about doctoring. It was something her mother taught her, back before Anna became a disappointment." He gave her a long look and saw a strength there that made him nod. They found 2 of their horses in a far pasture, spooked but not hurt. Anna hiked up her skirts and swung onto one of them bareback, grabbing its mane. Jacob raised an eyebrow, but kept his mouth shut. They rode fast through a world that had been turned upside down. Trees were stripped bare and fences were just gone. The tornado had cut a straight path right through the prairie. On one side of the line, everything was fine. On the other, it was all gone. The Patterson place was a terrible sight. The house looked like it had been picked up, twisted, and dropped. The walls leaned in ways that made your eyes hurt. Mrs. Patterson was standing by what used to be her front door, her fancy dress torn and her hair a mess. When she saw them, her face just crumpled. "Thank God," she said. "He is under here. I can hear him." But the sound coming from under that pile of wood was awful. It was the kind of noise a man makes when the pain is too much for words. Jacob was already sizing up the situation, walking around the broken house and testing boards with his foot. "Sam, go find every man you can," Jacob ordered. "We are going to need more muscle. Anna, you look for any medical supplies that made it. Mrs. Patterson, you keep talking to him. Let him know help is here." Anna picked through the mess and found the kitchen. A bottle of carbolic acid was somehow not broken. She found some clean cloth and a sewing kit. When she looked back, Jacob had taken his shirt off. He and Sam were trying to move a heavy beam. Anna felt something shift between them, a bond that had started in the storm cellar. It was a feeling that had nothing to do with their arrangement. It was something real, something that could grow if they survived this day. She heard Jacob curse, the first time she had ever heard him swear. He was looking at the main beam that held up the whole house. It was the same beam that was pinning Mr. Patterson's legs. If they moved it wrong, the whole thing would come down. One wrong move, and they would be pulling out a dead man. Jacob caught her eye across the rubble, and she knew he was thinking the same thing. This moment would change everything for them. If they saved Mr. Patterson, they would be heroes. If they failed, they would be the folks who let their neighbor die. "We have to support the sides first," Anna said, her own steady voice surprising her. "We build a small tunnel. Then we can pull him out without moving the main beam." Jacob just stared at her. "You have done this before?" she explained. "I saw something like it once. A mine collapsed back home." She did not tell him that 3 men died that day. She did not mention their screams still haunted her dreams. "Show me," Jacob said. And just like that, the woman nobody thought much of was telling a group of men how to save a life. The wife they called Baron was about to deliver a miracle. By the time 6 other neighbors arrived, Anna was directing them all. "Sam, use those fence posts for braces. Mr. Johnson, we need smaller boards over there." They all listened to her, trusting the certainty in her voice. Jacob worked right beside her, and he never once let his pride get in the way. They moved like they had a secret understanding, handing each other tools before they were even asked. Almost there, a weak voice groaned from under the house. "Save your breath, Mr. Patterson," Anna called out. "Give us 5 more minutes." It took them 20. Each board was placed with care. Every brace was checked twice. When the tunnel was finally ready, Jacob crawled in with a rope tied around his waist. Anna and 3 other men held the other end, ready to pull him out if things went bad. They heard Jacob talking low and calm to Mr. Patterson. Then he yelled, "Pull steady!" They all pulled together. Mr. Patterson screamed one sharp, awful time, and then he was quiet. For a heart-stopping second, Anna thought he was gone. Then Jacob came backing out, dragging Mr. Patterson by the shoulders. The man's legs were twisted all wrong, but he was free. "He is alive," Jacob panted, "but those legs—" Anna was already there, checking for bleeding and feeling for broken bones. Both legs were shattered, but he was not bleeding out. "Not yet," she said. "We need the doctor," Mrs. Patterson cried, her face as white as a sheet. "The doctor is 20 miles from here," someone said. "If his place is even still standing." Anna looked at the awful angles of Mr. Patterson's legs and thought about those miners back home. 2 of them died waiting for a doctor. 1 lived because her mother did not wait. "I can set them," Anna said, surprising herself. "It will not be perfect, but it will give him a chance." Mrs. Patterson grabbed her arm. "But you are not a doctor." "I have seen it done," Anna said, looking the woman straight in the eye. "I have helped do it. It is your choice. Let me try, or you can wait and hope." Mrs. Patterson looked down at her husband, who was now unconscious and pale as ash. "Do it," she whispered. Anna had Jacob cut splints from boards while she cleaned the wounds with carbolic acid. 4 men held Mr. Patterson down. At Anna's direction, Jacob got ready to pull the bones straight while she guided them into place. "On 3, she said. 1, 2, 3. Mr. Patterson woke up screaming. Mrs. Patterson started sobbing. But Anna's hands did not shake. She worked by feel and by memory. The left leg slid back into place almost easy. The right one fought her, the bones grinding horribly. She had to break it again to set it properly. Mr. Patterson passed out again, which was a blessing. When she was done, Anna sat back. Her hands and dress were covered in blood. The sun was going down, painting the sky with angry storm colors. "Will he live?" Mrs. Patterson asked. "Maybe," Anna said, her voice tired. "Keep the wounds clean. Do not let him move for at least 2 months." Mrs. Patterson took Anna's bloody hands in her own. "I was so wrong about you," she said with tears streaming down her dirty face. "You are exactly what Jacob needed, what we all needed." Anna gently pulled her hands away. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," Jacob said quietly from behind her. "They would not have." He was looking at her in a whole new way, and it had nothing to do with their arrangement. They rode home as the last light faded. Neither of them said a word. The whole world had changed in just one day. The storm had tested them, and the rescue had bound them together. Their own ranch looked even worse in the sunset. The roof was gone from the kitchen. The walls of Anna's room were torn open. But through the gloom, they heard their chickens clucking, complaining about their coop being knocked over. The milk cow was waiting patiently by the ruined barn. Life was demanding to go on. "We will sleep in my room," Jacob said. "It is the only one left standing." Anna just nodded, too tired to argue about what was proper. They were past all that now. By the light of a lantern, they saved what they could. The old cast-iron stove still worked. She made coffee and fried some eggs she found. It was a simple meal, but it tasted like hope. That night they faced the simple fact of one room, one bed, and two people who were no longer strangers. "I can sleep on the floor," Jacob offered. "No," Anna said, surprising herself with her own firmness. "We are both grown. We can share a bed for one night." He just looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. They got ready for bed quietly, a privacy screen between them. The bed was large, but the old mattress sagged in the middle, pulling them closer together than either of them planned. Lying there in the dark, Anna was aware of every breath he took. The storm had torn down more than just their house. It had torn down all their pretenses. "Anna," his voice was quiet in the dark. "Yes," she answered. "Today," he said slowly, "down in that cellar, when I thought it was the end for us, I realized something." He paused. "I wrote in Sarah's journal about being stronger. I thought that meant being stronger at being alone, but that was not it." The bed creaked as he turned to face her. "It meant being strong enough to choose. Not just fall into something because it is convenient, but to choose it with your eyes wide open, knowing all the risks." Anna turned toward him, her heart pounding. She could just barely make out his face in the moonlight coming through the broken wall. "What are you choosing, Jacob?" "I am choosing you," he said, his voice steady. "If you will have me, not as part of an arrangement, as my wife, my true wife." The words felt as real and solid as the ground beneath them. "I am not Sarah," she whispered. "I will never be her." "Thank the good Lord for that," he said, and his hand found hers in the darkness between them. "I do not want Sarah. I want the woman who stood tall when the whole world was laughing. The woman who works hard without a single complaint. I want you." Anna thought about how everyone had rejected her, from her family to the whole town. Everyone except this quiet, steady man who had seen something in her when she felt worthless. "Yes," she said, her voice clear and sure. "Yes, Jacob. I choose you too." He drew her closer, slow and gentle. His arms came around her, as solid and safe as they had been in the cellar. But this was not about finding shelter from a storm. This was about choosing to build a new life from the wreckage. His kiss was not demanding like others had been. It was a quiet conversation, a perfect understanding between two people who had survived the end of their world and were ready to start a new one together. They were choosing to live together. When he pulled away, he touched her face. His thumb gently traced where her tears had been. "We will rebuild," he said. "The house, the barn, all of it. But we will do it different this time. We will do it how we want it, together." "Yes, together." They held each other, with her head resting on his shoulder and his arm around her. Outside, you could hear coyotes calling out across the prairie. The wind howled through the hole where the roof used to be. But in that room, in that bed, two people who had given up on everything had just found it all. Jacob. "Tomorrow, when we go into town for supplies, I am going to sign the register as Anna Cole. That is my real name. No more pretending." His arm pulled her a little tighter. "Good. But folks might have a thing or two to say about us sharing a bed before the preacher has said the proper words." Anna let out a laugh that surprised her. "Let them talk. We are the ones who made it through the storm." Morning would bring a lot of work. They had to rebuild and face all the questions from the people in town. But for right then, in the dark, they had this. They had made a choice to be with each other. It was not because they had to, or because they were forced into it. It was because somewhere between that train depot and that moment, two people who had given up on love found something even better. They found partnership, They found trust, and they found the kind of love that does not come from falling for someone, but from choosing to stand with them when the whole world is trying to tear you apart. The rooster crowed way too early, all confused because the walls of his coop were gone. Anna stirred and felt Jacob's arm still around her, and she smiled. Outside, the sun was coming up over what was left of their home. It was time to rebuild. It was time to start over. It was time to live the life they had chosen, right in the middle of the ruins of the life they had been given. She got up and dressed behind the screen that was painted with Sarah's flowers. She was keeping that one little piece of the past while she built a new future. Jacob watched her with eyes that promised her everything. He promised her hard work and struggle, and probably a few more storms. But he also promised her this. He was the one who had chosen her when she was the last one left, and she was the one who had chosen him right back. "Ready?" he asked. Anna looked at the broken house and all the work ahead of them. She looked at the man who had become her husband in his heart, if not yet by law. She thought about all the people who had called her damaged. Have you ever seen someone count themselves out thinking they were worthless? That was Anna, until a Texas twister changed everything. When she told Jacob she was ready, she meant it with her whole soul. They stepped out into the daylight, no longer just two people under one roof, but two halves of a whole heart. This story proves that what looks like the end is often a new beginning, so stick around to see how. That storm took their home but gave them something solid. They knew they had chosen each other, not in spite of their broken pieces, but because of them. They understood that being the one nobody wanted just meant you were being saved for the one who could see you clear. The work ahead was hard, and the town would surely talk. But Anna Cole, a name that finally felt like her own, learned a powerful truth down in that cellar. The best love stories don't start with perfection. They start when two people decide to build something beautiful right in the middle of a wreck. And you know what? That Anna Cole turned into the thread that stitched our whole town back together. She got Mrs. Patterson's sewing circle making bandages. She taught the younger wives how to stretch their pantries thin when the supply wagons couldn't run. We had all been so busy looking at what Anna couldn't give. We plumb missed everything she had to offer. She had practical sense, steady hands, and a way of seeing folks for who they truly were. When my own wife had a tough time with childbirth, it was Anna who was there with a calm voice and good sense. Jacob, he changed too. Started speaking up at town meetings, and I even saw him crack a smile now and again. They rebuilt that ranch into something better, something new. Goes to show, sometimes the person folks overlook is the one everyone ends up counting on. Just remember, this tale was spun for good fun, in the spirit of a classic Western. All the characters and events are purely from the imagination. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with valuable life lessons. Every narrative is crafted to entertain, inspire, and empower our audience. We believe that great stories can change lives, and we are committed to bringing you content that matters. Thank you for being part of our community.